So again, with that, I would like to introduce Amanda Hooper. Amanda is a local, grew up down here on the Outer Banks, and she is the Natural Resources Director for the Dare County League of Women Voters. So Amanda was instrumental in contacting George and coming up with this fantastic program that we're about to participate in. And thank you all for coming. If you have a question during the presentation, please look for the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Just click that, make sure it's to everyone, and just type in your question there. And at the end of the program, we'll make sure that Captain Bonner gets a chance to answer your question. Thank you so much, and I will turn it over to Amanda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. Like Laura said, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box or take a note. We will have an opportunity to have open discussion at the end of the meeting. To introduce George Bonner. George Bonner is the Director of Renewable Ocean Energy at Coastal Studies Institute. He is leading research and development in marine energy solutions across North Carolina's, the University of North Carolina system. He retired from a 30-year career in the U.S. Coast Guard and returned home to the Outer Banks. George Bonner, I would like to just turn this over to you.
Great, thanks a lot. I really appreciate the opportunity, Laura and Amanda, to be part of this, and I hope everyone's made out fine with the winter storm. We got a little bit of snow and obviously the ongoing COVID challenges, but I do appreciate the opportunity this afternoon, and thank you for sharing your time with me, and hopefully we can have a good discussion. As I highlight some, first I'm going to start out with just a few of the things that are going on at the Coastal Studies Institute, and talk about our North Carolina Renewable Ocean Energy Program and how we're working to support North Carolina's clean energy plan and our economy. I did grow up here on the Outer Banks. I grew up in Manteo, graduated from Manteo High School, and I spent a lot of time in Manteo and in Wanchese. My mom was from Wanchese, spent most weekends in Wanchese. So I work right here at CSI, which is in Sky between Manteo and Wanchese, which is an awesome place to work, and it's great to be back home. Like it was mentioned, I retired from the Coast Guard. I grew up here, hearing a lot of sea stories from a lot of folks that had served in the Coast Guard and in the Navy, and a lot of those were during World War II. And I think that's what drew me to wanting to be part of the Coast Guard and to serve in the Coast Guard. And also, growing up in the 70s and 80s, we were going through a really high rate of growth. That things were changing quickly here on the Outer Banks. So just seeing the competing demands between tourism, growth, our marine resources. And I worked in construction some. I worked in the restaurant business. I worked crabbing and fishing with my dad. And just seeing those competing demands, I think, grew me to want to look a career in civil engineering. So I applied to the Coast Guard Academy out of Manteo High School, did not get in. And so I headed to NC State University and was there for a year, and then reapplied. And I got into the Coast Guard Academy, which allowed me to study civil engineering and then go on to mostly my career. I was a civil engineer, managing the Coast Guard infrastructure and systems to protect the mariner that the Coast Guard worked on. And, obviously the devastating forces of our ocean. And we were seeing, during my career, increasing coastal storms and the impacts of a changing climate. You don't have to look far to see, we've had Superstorm Sandy, Katrina. So, those all had major impacts on the Coast Guard, and we had to rebuild our infrastructure and make it more resilient. So I became very interested in resilience, the impacts of sea level rise, but then also what can we do to change that? What can we do to make a difference to reverse some of these changes to our climate? So I got very interested in sustainability, how we could use alternative energy to reduce our greenhouse gases. The Coast Guard has been a leader in that area. We've taken our waterways, our AIDS navigation network is 99% reliant on renewable energy, and other ways to reduce the carbon footprint of our infrastructure and the way we execute our missions. So when I retired, after 30 years, I wanted to move back home, and this opportunity came open, and I feel really grateful for the opportunity to come back home and to work in an area where I'm taking, working on not those destructive forces of the ocean, and how can we harness those same forces and use them in a productive way to produce clean energy. So that's what I get excited about every day is not only being home, but also how can we use those same forces in a productive way. So I'm going to share my screen now and start my little presentation here. All right, can you guys see? Somebody give me a thumbs up. They can see my slides okay? All right, very good. Well, that is not what I wanted to share. Hold on. I'm not able to advance my slide here. Hold on.
This happens to us all the time, all the time.
Yeah. All right. We practiced this before and it worked fine.
Always the case.
How about now? You guys see it now? There we go.
Yay.
Okay, so here we are at CSI. This is our website at the top. And like I said, this is an awesome place to work. We have a great team. The director is Dean Reed Corbett, and he leads, like I said, a really great team of interdisciplinary scientists, engineers, and they're really tackling some of the pressing challenges that our coasts are facing. And we not only the research but education, starting with K through 12 and undergraduate, graduate, and a lot of PhD level research. We have summer camps, which are great opportunities for kids to get involved and get involved in science firsthand. I work like was mentioned with the North Carolina Renewable Energy Program, and I get to work with a great team. I think some of you may have met Dr. Lindsay Dubbs. She did a presentation last year. And she's the associate director of our program here. And then Dr. Mike Mulia is the assistant director for science and research. And Mike and Lindsay have been at CSI for a number of years and been involved with the Ocean Energy Program. And it's just great to work with both those guys. Some of the other events we have coming up, we have a Meet the Scientist event every month or so. We have one coming up on January 26th to meet one of our scientists. And I think those events are usually like at 5:30 or 6, but you can tune into that on our website. There's links to those events. Like I mentioned, we have summer camps coming up. We were able to have in-person camps last year, and we're planning on that again this year. This is a really cool program that started last year. It's a research experience for undergraduates, and CSI is leading this in partnership with Clemson University and University of Puerto Rico. But it's a great opportunity for undergraduate students to come spend time at CSI this summer and take on some of the coastal challenges and how we can build resilience in coastal communities. The applications are open for that now. So if you know an undergraduate student that may be interested, please encourage them to apply. The applications are open through the 7th of February. And I think one of the only requirements is that they have to have completed at least 1 year in their undergraduate studies. So great opportunity. This is pictures from the students that were here last summer as they got to get their hands involved and see firsthand how some of the research and get involved in what's going on at the coast. So great opportunity there. We have students from East Carolina University that are here in the spring. And so these are interdisciplinary students from different backgrounds and different majors. And they're here this summer. This is, I think, the second year we've had this at CSI. And then in the fall, we have students from Chapel Hill. And same thing, they're interdisciplinary students. and they come out and spend the fall semester at CSI. And for both these programs, the students get involved in local internships. So they get to work with a local internship, and then they like I said, get to work on some team projects and capstone projects and things like that. And this is pictures of some of the students, the undergraduate students that are here during the fall and the spring, some of the things they get involved with. All right, so we're going to shift gears now and talk about clean energy some. So North Carolina released, Governor Cooper released a North Carolina Clean Energy Plan in 2019. So it's a really comprehensive plan on how can North Carolina reduce greenhouse emissions. Some of the targets in this plan are to reduce our greenhouse emissions by 70% by 2030 and attain total carbon neutrality by 2050. So these are aggressive goals. And North Carolina has been a leader in solar energy. I think we've bounced between number 2 and number 3 in the country with solar energy. But how else are we going to achieve these goals? What other renewable energy are we going to work towards? A big part of this plan is making sure that power remains affordable and accessible for all North Carolina residents. And to integrate renewables, a big part of it is modernizing our grid infrastructure and working on policies that support clean energy. And then, of course, innovation is a big part. We got to bring in other renewables and do it in a cost-effective way, in ways that are responsible to our environment. And that's where we get involved at CSI in our program is that innovation piece there. North Carolina came out with an executive order on offshore wind recently to expand development of our offshore wind leases. This is the current lease that's under development, and it's called the Kitty Hawk lease, and it's about 27 miles off the North Carolina coast. So when those turbines are installed, you won't be able to see them, even if you were standing on top of Body Island Lighthouse. They'll be over the horizon. That lease area will produce 2,500 megawatts of electricity and power around 700,000 homes. And just to the north in that green area, that's the Virginia offshore lease being developed by Dominion Energy. And they have 2 of those turbines installed now. And you can see in the bottom left-hand picture, 2 of those turbines that were installed last summer. And so they're moving forward with expanding development of their lease area. And then the North Carolina Kitty Hawk lease is just behind that. And the picture up in the top left just shows all the other leases that are being developed along the East Coast by New York, New Jersey, up in New England. And there's a lot of work with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management to make sure that this is done in a responsible way. And that's part of why the 2 turbines were installed off the Virginia coast. So additional environmental monitoring, understanding any possible impacts from these turbines being installed. And then North Carolina's plan is to have additional leases off North Carolina's coast south of Cape Hatteras area. And you can just see some of this has these technologies that have developed, and Europe's been the leader in developing these offshore wind technologies, but you can see the heights of the turbines as they move taller. They're up to these 853-foot turbines that are really efficient, and they've been proven to be resilient, to different conditions, including storm conditions. So, like I said, I'm focused on how can we harness the power of our oceans. And, that when I talk about that, we use marine energy, ocean energy. Marine energy is kind of the term that's used mostly now, but it's using the power of our waves, our tidal forces, and our currents. We have the Gulf Stream off North Carolina coast, which has tremendous potential. But this is the results of a study recently completed by the Department of Energy National Renewable Energy Lab. And it shows the technical resource of our marine energy resources here in the U.S. And what this is basically telling us is that we could power roughly 60% of the U.S. energy demand with marine energy. And obviously, we're not going to harness every possible wave out there. But if we were going to do, let's say 1/10 of that power, then we could power 22 million homes, or 3 times of the current total solar generation in the U.S. if we were just to tap into 10% of that. So, marine energy, Europe's kind of been the leader in this area. They've gotten a lot of grid scale devices that they've deployed and developed, and we're moving in that direction on how we can prove the technologies, how they can work, and how we can reduce the levelized cost of energy so we can do it in a cost-effective way, and do it in a responsible way. So that's a lot of what we're focused on. The U.S. has a goal of that's released by the National Hydropower Association to deploy 500 megawatts of marine energy by 2030, and then a gigawatt by 2035, and that'll allow us to prove these technologies and, like I said, drive down costs. The two grid projects that have been deployed recently, there was one by Verdant Marine up in the East River up in New York City, and they had 3 tidal turbines that were installed that produced 275 megawatt hours of energy. And then a company called ORPC has deployed turbines to power a community up in Alaska that's located on a river. So there's just a couple of examples as these technologies are developed, and we can prove them, and then how marine energy or ocean energy can help contribute to achieving these 100% clean energy solutions to support not only the North Carolina, but the U.S. goals. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about our program. Like I mentioned, I work across the UNC system. So mainly with the colleges of engineering at NC State University, North Carolina A&T University, and UNC Charlotte, as well as East Carolina University. And then we have researchers here at CSI. So these solutions, not only are we looking at understanding the resources and what's available, but coming up with solutions that make sense, what things can work in the harsh ocean environment. And then the big part is making sure that we do it in a responsible way, so having negative environmental impacts as we deploy any solution is a big part of what we're focused on. So a lot of the focus has been on things, not just powering the grid, but on what we call the blue economy. So there's a lot of things that are emerging in our coastal zones that require energy and power. And power at sea is one example. Powering, we talked about ocean observation, like the Coast Guard, our Aegis Navigation Network, using renewable energy to power those. Aquaculture is an emerging area. There's a lot of focus on mining for metals in the ocean, and how can we use marine energy to do that if we're going to do it in a more responsible way. Powering unmanned underwater vehicles, and then providing power for like island communities, and how we can provide more resilient power for those communities. So obviously everybody's aware of what happened in Tonga with the recent volcano eruption and the tsunami there. They depend on 100% of their power from diesel fuel. And right now they don't have any water. So, how could marine energy be used to desalinate water and provide drinking water for those communities is another example of how marine energy could be used. Just some of the examples on the right. I'll start at the bottom right. This is a kite harvesting system that's developed at NC State, and it's being funded by the Department of Defense as a way to provide renewable energy to power Navy unmanned underwater vehicles to support their strategic goals. So a really neat project. We've been testing that system in the Lake Norman out by Charlotte here this fall. And we're looking forward to doing some ocean testing this summer. We do a lot of our testing. We have a great partnership with Jeanette's Pier and the North Carolina Aquariums. So in the middle picture on the right, that's an example of a wave energy converter that we've tested at Jeanette's Pier. And we continue to build on those testing programs. And then up in the top right, maritime transportation. North Carolina has the second largest state-owned ferry system in the country. And as they move to decarbonize, the systems that power their ferries, how can marine energy or other renewable energy play a part in powering the shoreside energy needs to support, whether it's electric ferries and powering and recharging those batteries, or using clean hydrogen is another solution that you're seeing more and more in energy in Europe and other parts of the world. So we're excited. We recently got selected as a Department of Energy National Marine Renewable Energy Center called the Atlantic Marine Energy Center. So it's a consortium with the University of New Hampshire, Lehigh University, and Stony Brook, and we get to build on our successful testing and research programs in this area of marine energy. And so we're excited. This program is going to allow us to build on our testing programs. We're going to install a microgrid at Jeanette's Pier, which will allow us to connect devices to the microgrid and store that power, as well as get accredited for our testing program, so we can help with commercialization as researchers and developers move forward with their strategies. So we're excited about that. There's 3 other National Marine Renewable Energy Centers in the country funded by Department of Energy. One's in Hawaii, one's in the Pacific Northwest, and one's down in South Florida. So it's great for us to be part of that network. And we're also partnered with the National Labs as part of that, and the European Marine Energy Center, which is over in Orkney, Scotland. They're kind of the leaders in the world right now in deploying marine energy solutions and testing them. So it's been great to work with our partners out there and learn from their success and how we can build on that and apply it here. We also work with Old Dominion University. ODU was a leader in the offshore wind lease off Virginia, and they had a lot of great work in research and bringing stakeholders together with that. So we have them as a partner as well. All right, next I'm going to talk about a really cool event that we're sponsoring here locally at Jeanette's Pier called Waves to Water. And I'm going to try to share a video real quick, so bear with me.
Access to safe, clean drinking water is essential for coastal communities around the world. The U.S. Department of Energy and the National Renewable Energy Laboratories are working with U.S. innovators to provide solutions for drinking water access through ocean-powered desalination systems through the American-made Challenges Waves to Water Prize. Sponsored by the U.S. Department of Energy Water Power Technologies Office, the Waves to Water Prize is a 5-stage, $3.3 million contest designed to accelerate the development of small, modular, wave-powered desalination systems capable of providing potable drinking water in disaster relief scenarios and remote coastal locations. East Carolina University, the Coastal Studies Institute, and Jeanette's Pier have recently partnered with the Department of Energy and the National Renewable Energy Laboratories to host the final drink stage of the contest in the prong of 2022. During this stage, teams will test their devices over a 5-day period in the waters adjacent to Jeanette's Pier. The Coastal Studies Institute is a multi-institutional research and education partnership led by East Carolina University in collaboration with NC State University, UNC Chapel Hill, UNC Wilmington, and Elizabeth City State University. CSI operates a renewable energy testing site in partnership with Jeanette's Pier, a North Carolina Aquariums-operated facility located in Nags Head, North Carolina. The research experience, technical expertise, and infrastructure available for deployment and testing make CSI and Jeanette's Pier an optimal location and partnership for teams in the drink stage of the Waves to Water Prize.
A cornerstone of our program has been testing wave energy technologies in the real ocean environment at our testing platform at Jeanette's Pier in Nags Head, North Carolina. We're really excited to partner with NREL and Department of Energy and Jeanette's Pier on this game-changing way of coupling wave energy technologies with desalination technologies to deliver safe drinking water to our coastal communities.
Jeanette's Pier is extremely excited about hosting the Waves to Water Challenge because along with our partners, the Coastal Studies Institute, we are uniquely situated to handle each and every task that is going to be thrown at us. We have ample natural resources, we have strong educational relationships, we have an outreach opportunity that is more expansive than anything in the Mid-Atlantic. We can reach 250,000 to 500,000 people a year on site with the information that is generated here from this competition.
CSI, Jeanette's Pier, and DOE's National Renewable Energy Laboratory are excited to be hosting this final stage of the competition on North Carolina's Outer Banks. The research experience, technical expertise, outreach potential, and infrastructure available make Jeanette's Pier the ideal location for the device testing stage for the competition. Join us in the spring of 2022 for this exciting final stage of the Waves to Water Prize.
Hopefully you guys can see the video okay. Did it show up okay? All right. I'm going to go back to my presentation here. All right. So can you see my slides now okay? Yeah, okay. So there's over $3 million in prizes for this. We're at the final stage. And we were actually going to have this the final competition last year. With COVID and everything, it got moved up. Obviously, we're down to 5 teams that are in the final drink stage, and they're all kind of leading innovators. But there's supply chain issues, and but we've been having meetings with these final 5 teams this week, and they're all prepared to get their devices out here. And we're going to have this final test in April, the first week of April. So there's going to be events, workshops with Department of Energy and our team and these developers. So we're excited about bringing all these folks out to the Outer Banks and then getting to see this firsthand. So we're creating opportunities to get kids involved, from our middle schools and high schools, and as well as some of our students from the universities to get to see some of these technologies firsthand. And so they'll be pumping their water up onto the pier, Jeanette's Pier, and there's different criteria that we're evaluating on. Obviously this prize is geared towards technologies that could be deployed during a contingency. And just like we talked about the disaster at Tonga and their limitations on drinking water, where you could deploy it and produce drinking water with using renewable energy. And then we'll test them. The water gets tested to make sure that they are, through their reverse osmosis systems, purifying the water to clean drinking water standards, and then they'll get judged on how much water they're able to produce, and then how their device performs ideally we're going to test them for 5 days in the water. I'm having a problem with it not progressing again. Let me see here. Here we go. So the blue areas just show the areas in Jeanette's Pier where we're going to have the devices in the water, and they'll be pumping their water up onto the pier. Some of them have the reverse osmosis systems on board the device, and others, the shore side, they're producing power that's powering the reverse osmosis, which will be located up on the pier. And on the right are just some of the examples of the types of devices that we're testing, some of the renderings that were produced by the teams. The one in the far upper right, that's the team that is one of the 5 finalists. That is, these guys were researchers from our program a few years back, and they're from NC State and UNC Charlotte. So they've created a company, and they're producing, and they're one of the 5. So one of the teams is from California. They're from kind of all over. So we're, like I said, excited about getting them here. And we're going to be putting out information about the event and ways to look at it on virtually, as well as some of the in-person opportunities here shortly. Another really cool program that we're involved in with the Department of Energy is called the Energy Transitions Initiative Partnership Project. The government likes acronyms, so the acronym is ETIP. But this program is focused on how can we produce, how can we improve the power resiliency or the energy resilience for islands and remote communities. So like I said, growing up here on the Outer Banks and living on a lot of islands, I lived on Kodiak Island and Puerto Rico throughout my career in the Coast Guard. So, the power on islands and remote areas, we're the first one to lose power and the last one to get it on. Get power restored. So through this program, how can we look at ways to improve energy resilience for islands, and as well as how can renewables possibly be incorporated? So we're in the 2nd year of this program, and we're one of 5 other community-based partners. So we represent the southeast part of the U.S. There's 2 community-based partners up in Alaska. There's one in Hawaii, and then the Island Institute up in Maine. So as a community-based partner, we help identify communities, encourage those communities to apply for this free technical support. And so we're currently working with the town of Nags Head and Ocracoke Island. So the town of Nags Head, the support that we're providing there through the Department of Energy labs is how can emergency services and the reliability, the powers, the energy that's essential, during a contingency or during a storm, how can we make sure that power is more reliable and possibly use renewable energy and reduce the carbon footprint of that power. And then in Ocracoke, we're looking at, as they have long-term plans to electrify their ferries, and what is the shoreside power that's needed for electrification of ferries. The applications for this next year is open. So if you know of a community, please reach out to me, and I can put my email in the chat. But we're talking to different islands in the Southeast and different communities about encouraging them to apply and seek this technical support over the next year. And probably the coolest part of my job is really working with students and young people, because they're all excited about making a difference. And how can we, advance marine energy or other renewable energy. These are the students from North Carolina A&T that we've worked with over the last year or so. And this is them testing in the bottom right. They built a device, a wave energy converter that takes wave energy and powers a turbine, which is used to produce power. And this is them testing it in our wave tank here at CSI. And you can see how excited they are when the device worked. And they actually won a Department of Energy prize up in the top right. You can see the trophy they got, the Rising Star Award. And so they have a great program. It's a top engineering school there at North Carolina A&T. And most of these students were mechanical engineers that we were working with. But they're competing in that competition again this year, and I'm excited to work with them. And then I'll mention this, we have an upcoming annual event called the North Carolina Renewable Energy Challenge, where kids from middle school and high school can get involved, and we have it at CSI. We were not able to have it the last 2 years, but we're having it in person this year, and registration is open now. The event will be on the 30th of April at CSI, but it's a great way for kids to get hands-on experience building devices that wind energy devices, and we have a marine energy part of that competition as well, where they actually get to build marine energy devices and use our wave tank here at CSI. So please, if you have kids in high school or middle school, please pass this information along, and applications are open now for that event. And so with that, I was just gonna, like I said, I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're working on here at CSI and how it fits into overall North Carolina's clean energy goals, and how we can continue to advance some of these solutions to help, fill in where solar and offshore wind, so that we can achieve those 100% goals. So thanks again, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Well, thank you so much, George, for that presentation. And we did have a few questions in our chat. And I would just like to let everybody know that we will, if you joined late, you'll be able to see the entire presentation in a few days when we get it converted and over to our YouTube channel. And I'm going to throw it back over to Amanda Hooper to help us through the chat questions. But while Amanda is looking over that, I would like to let all of our participants know of the upcoming events that the League of Women Voters is planning to have. The next thing that is going on for us is an ERA march in Washington, D.C. On Thursday, January 27th, there is an ERA march. We have reached the threshold of ratification of the ERA, and yet it hasn't been moved out of the archive. So we're still pushing for that. Our league luncheon will be Friday, February 11 at 11:30, and that currently we're hoping to be in the tie room, and that will be with the community care clinic, followed closely by a wonderful civil rights event on Wednesday, February 23rd at 7 p.m. We will have a special showing across the state of NC from the leagues all across the state of the story of the 9 o'clock whistle by civil rights icon, our own a friend and relative of one of our members, Willa Cofield, will talk about that story of the 9 o'clock whistle from Enfield, North Carolina, back in the day. The next event will be March 9th, and we're going to have an educational program on the national popular vote. So if you're interested in learning what that's all about, join us in March. And Saturday, April 23rd at 3 p.m., we're having a local event with the Pea Island Preservation Society. So I hope you join us with that for those upcoming. And also we have elections coming up this year, and we will certainly be active in our candidate forums. Amanda, do you see any questions for us?
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I do see quite a few questions, and there's some really great questions, but George, I'm going to start with one of my own.
Okay.
Hydroelectric energy is not a new concept. We've been damming rivers for a long time and capturing energy that way. Why do you think it's taken so long to accept ocean energy as a valuable tool? And also, do we see any kind of negative effects like we have seen from damming of rivers?
So I think why hasn't it been adopted earlier? I guess there's a lot of reasons. A lot of times, you got to have the grid that can support the power. So we don't like in North Carolina, other than Wilmington, we don't have a lot of cities close to the ocean. You know what I mean? So you want to produce your power that's close in the grid that can support it. But I think with offshore wind development, that's a game changer because we're adding the grid for offshore wind. So I think that'll help. The other challenge has just been the permitting process. It's anytime you put things in the ocean, like I said, there's a lot of things you have to do on the permitting. And I think as, over recent years, we've done a lot to make sure that we can, validate that we're not having negative impacts, from noises or other things. And so I think, developing permitting processes that can streamline so that it doesn't take 10 years to permit a project, and like I said, validating that we're not having negative environmental impacts, I think is a key part. And that's a cornerstone of our program is making sure that we're monitoring everything and not advancing solutions that could have those negative impacts. Because there's a lot of competing demands in our coastal zones, and with offshore wind, maritime commerce, and just recreational purposes, and doing things that are complementary and that we don't have a negative impact, I think is critical. So I think those are some of the reasons why, up until recently, there wasn't a big push for renewable energy, and so I think that's shifting quickly, and folks are looking for ways that they can produce clean energy, and it's not just that we're not burning fossil fuels, but it's looking at the total supply chain and the total carbon footprint, all the materials that go into those solutions as well is a key part, so yeah. And I see some of the other questions. So one of the questions was about the Duck Research Pier. So yeah, we work closely with the Army Corps of Engineers and a great partnership there. We've tested devices in the past up at the Duck Research Pier. We use a lot of their data. Our oceanographers work closely with them. And for the Waves to Water event I mentioned earlier, they're actually installing a new technology they have. It's called X-band radar. So they've installed that at the end of Jeanette's Pier. So basically it's taking data points as waves come in, and we have all that data. So it really helps us understand the wave field. And then we can also use that system allows us to understand, the depth of the ocean and seeing how that's changing over time. Because that's another, it is a dynamic environment, and, we have a storm like we had the last couple of days, that bottom changes. So this system allows us to understand those changes. And so we're excited about this new technology that they've added at Jeanette's and how that can help us in the future as we, not only understand the resources from a wave energy standpoint, but, just from a coastal dynamic standpoint as well.
It's very cool. So there was a question here mentioning commercialized marine energy. How close is America to having reliable marine energy supplying communities?
Like I mentioned, we got several companies that are U.S. based, Verdant and ORPC, Ocean Renewable Power Company, I believe is what they're based out of Maine. Yeah, I think we're moving in that direction quickly. ORPC just it was funny. They one of their first demonstration projects a few years ago was actually partially funded by the Coast Guard. So it's neat to see something that was funded by the Coast Guard actually moving forward, and they're the ones that are powering this isolated community up in Alaska that depended on flying in diesel to power their community. Now they're able to use this tidal turbine to power most of their energy needs. So that's kind of neat. But I think there's tremendous potential for marine energy, and I think as these technologies get proven and we can drive down the cost and make them so that we can do it in a cost-effective way. And that's what happened with solar and wind. As you develop and commercialize technologies, the cost drops significantly. So we're still in kind of that R&D phase with marine energy, but we're shifting to more demonstration projects and proving that we can drive down the cost and do it in a cost-effective way.
Economies of scale never goes away.
Yeah.
Judy, I love this question because I was thinking this. So is taste a part of the fifth level of the testing?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely planning on tasting some of the beer. We talked about, hey, can we use some of this water with a local brewery to brew some beer or something? But I don't know if we'll do that. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely, it goes through a reverse osmosis process. All these devices are using, and so the quality of the water is excellent when it comes out on the other end.
Well, I can connect you with the brewery in Stumpy Point who is already using a reverse osmosis process. So you guys should definitely make beer from this water.
Yeah.
There was a question earlier about the leasing of the turbines, and are they up and running yet?
I don't know. Is that the offshore wind turbines or the? Yeah.
Offshore.
So the Virginia lease, there's 2 turbines installed already, and those are up and running. In North Carolina's Kitty Hawk lease, they're still they're about 2 years behind the Virginia lease. So I think, in the next year or so, we'll actually see the development of that lease area, and that's done. Avangrid Corporation is the company developing that, and the one in Virginia is Dominion Energy.
So talking about Avangrid, well, there's a new question, and we can come back to that. Can the flow-based energy systems be used in inlet tidal areas? That's a great question. Yeah.
So the system that I mentioned earlier up in New York City that was on the East River, there's turbine systems that are designed so that they can reverse as with an ebb and a flow tide, so the systems can operate in both directions. And Europe's got a grid scale larger devices that they deployed. And so, we're looking for opportunities. Alaska has tremendous inlet potential up in Alaska that people are looking at, and we're looking at other communities. I mentioned that ETIP program we're working on, where we're working with island communities. One of the projects there up in Maine is looking at tidal energy to help support one of the communities up there. So there's opportunities, and like I said, proving the technology. Anytime you put something in the ocean, it's high maintenance. So using materials and developing solutions that require less maintenance, improving things that can do to improve the reliability. These are all things that we're working through, and we've had some leading research out at UNC Charlotte where they developed using magnets to help with the transfer of power, so that you reduce some of the mechanical wear and tear of putting something in the ocean. So I think that's a huge part of it. And like I said, we're still in the R&D phase and in early deployment phase, but I think you're going to see this move forward here in the future.
And going along with that same question, does CSI currently have any projects for this area, talking with the flow-based energy?
So as part of this Atlantic Marine Energy Center, We will be testing more devices at Jeanette's, but right now we've been focused on this Waves to Water event, and then we're going to make some improvements to our testing infrastructure at Jeanette's as part of the Atlantic Marine Energy Center, and then be able to test more devices. You know, I kind of have a vision. I'd really like to have an array of devices there that we could power, you know, electric vehicle charging at Jeanette's. You know, so how far are we away from getting there? I don't know, but I'm kind of something I'd like to work on over the coming years.
I'd like to see it in our lifetime.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm hoping a couple of years. So we'll see. Yeah.
What lessons are you all thinking about from the recent tsunami event? And is there any way for us to really prepare for something like that?
Yeah, it's kind of outside of, but you know, I was stationed on the West Coast in the Coast Guard a couple of years, in the Bay Area and up in Alaska. And obviously tsunamis have had tremendous impact up in Alaska over the years. And, you know, I think, understanding those type of events and, you know, the U.S. is, and there's a huge warning system that's installed. My son's stationed out in Hawaii, so he's in the Coast Guard, and he actually, you know, they got warned early on. He got woke up in the middle of the night, and they got down to the cutter, and they were prepared to get underway in case, in the event that they were going to have impacts in Hawaii from the tsunami. And they did get some minor waves, but nothing that required them to get underway. But yeah, I mean, there's scientists here at CSI that do get involved, in oceanographers and understanding tsunamis and how we can prepare for those type of events. But I think, you know, the early warning systems are critical to help protect lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the wind energy, and please say if this is a question that we don't really want to talk about, but it's something that I have thought a lot about and discussed with some of your colleagues. And that is that Avangrid currently is structuring the Kitty Hawk Wind Project to bring energy into Sandbridge, Virginia, versus coming ashore in North Carolina. Do we have any say of that? Is there a big difference when it's going into Virginia versus coming right into North Carolina?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that challenge of the grid, and, you know, us not having the high voltage that you would need for them to easily make a connection here in Northeast North Carolina. You know, I think we're able to, you know, the way the grid on the Mid-Atlantic structured, there's ability to move power around. And, you know, so it is renewable energy coming into the grid. And, you know, we're serviced by Dominion here in Northeast North Carolina as well. So, but yeah, I think as the grid gets modernized and the ability to more flexibility and be able to move power, and I think that, but I think, like you say, that's the plan for now, is that it is going into Southeast Virginia. But I'm not directly involved in that at all. So, but I'm just aware of it.
There was a great conversation about the economics of it, taxation of it. We want our power here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I thought I heard another question. Guys, if y'all have any questions, please do put it in the chat or raise your hand. We will kind of keep an eye out.
Thank you, Amanda. If the participants would bear with me, and I've prepared a little survey, and it really has to do with the league and our public programs. We're having more and more of these, and we want to have community events because, you know, from up and down the beach, from up in Corolla, Wanchese, Duck, Manio, we all have the same problems, and we want to have more community events to bring us together. So if y'all would take a few minutes and let me ask a quick little poll, and just take your time to answer these questions here. I hope you see something on your screen, and we're talking about times for League of Women Voters to have our public programs. Can y'all see that on the screen? Thumbs up, Rosemary, or no?
I can see it on my screen.
Can y'all go ahead and answer that poll for me? There's just 5 little questions and shouldn't take very long. And in the meantime, while y'all are doing that for us, thank you again, George, for your service to our community, your service to our country and the Coast Guard. my husband is a veteran. My son never was in any of the services, but I felt that with his personality and his interests, the Coast Guard would be the place for him if he ever chose to join. So I really appreciate your participation today, and we look forward to many more community events here on the Outer Banks by the League of Women Voters. And I know that my co-president, Judy Lotus, is here on the Zoom. Judy, would you like to say any words or unmute yourself or tell us something about the ERA?
No, I'm not. That was a great program. George, thanks very much for that information. Having just received my electric bill, I'm glad you're working hard on this. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Hey, George, I have another question for you. Just while this poll is continuing, can individual turbines that, like, we have wind all the time here, right? And I have a wonderful 200-foot dock that does not have a boat on it. If I was to put turbines on it, is that something that can be sold back to the grid? And when individuals do that, are we actually making an impact? I think you're
yeah, can you hear me now?
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any solutions that, like, at the scale, like at the depths that we would have, like on your dock, that would probably make sense for putting back into the grid. There's probably some that you could power other things, you know, keeping something charged or a system like that, things like that, that would make sense. But probably not unless you had a large property and, with a very strong tide, where it may make sense here. But yeah, I mean, I think as like I said, technologies get developed and drive down the cost to produce them, and there'll be solutions that'll make sense. But right now there's nothing like that you could put in your house that would be comparable to like having solar, where you're gonna,
Not just
grid. Yeah.
That's understandable. Look, we've got a couple extra questions here. Is there a concern about offshore wind platforms being a navigation hazard?
I just know from the time when I was in the Coast Guard and then seeing what's going on now, there's a lot of planning and coordination that goes on with all the stakeholders. So I know that they've created like corridors for the major maritime shipping so that there's not impacts from these offshore wind leases. There's also a lot of coordination, with commercial fishing stakeholders to look at all that. So I know that there's been a lot of work, and the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management leads that effort. So they have various meetings. I've attended some of them, where they get stakeholder input, and a lot of work goes into making sure that those permits don't impact navigation. So yeah.
Absolutely. And this was a great conversation with some commercial fishermen. They were saying, oh, well, these are going to get in our way. And, we kind of argued back and saying, well, you can go back and fish around old oil rigs. And when you have that structure in the water, the fish tend to navigate towards that. So hopefully that'll kind of end up being the same thing without the boats getting too close. All right, Rick Jones has asked us, does CSI and or the College of the Albemarle have courses in alternative energy that we could attend or could audit?
Yeah, so we don't have any courses like outside of the ones that we're teaching for our undergraduates that are, but that's definitely something that, we would love to, and we do have a partnership with COA, to look at courses down the road. I'm involved with it's called a Veterans Advanced Energy Fellowship through the Atlantic Council. And part of our charge of this fellowship is how can we help veterans find jobs in renewable energy and in the energy sector? Because I think like me, it's an opportunity to continue to serve and to support, our economy and some of the national goals. So we're looking at ways that, programs that help veterans make that transition into the energy sector. So I think there's opportunities, in COA, as these offshore wind areas get developed, there's going to be great jobs for folks, everything from welders to inspectors to engineers to the offshore supply vessels that support those offshore wind farms. So there's great opportunities, and, you know, making sure that we provide the training and the education, you know, through COA or however, to make sure that our kids have opportunities for those great jobs.
Might be a really cool program for the adults living here just to learn more about.
Yeah.
You've mentioned modernizing the grid a couple of times. What does that mean?
So, you know, the grid is not only the transformers that change voltage and the ability to move power in different directions, and all the infrastructure that goes along, you know, moving it from point A to point B, and smarter systems that allow, you know, because when renewables produce, it's not like when you turn on a nuclear power plant or a gas turbine, you know, the energy production changes, you know, as for solar, you know, depending on what the sun's doing, or the wind, you know, the rate of wind changes. So systems that can accommodate the variation and as power is produced with renewables, and how you integrate that. In some cases, you need storage to help levelize that power and use it most effectively. So I think that's all part of grid, you know, modernization.
How are we coming along with fuel cells and like the ability to store massive amounts of renewable energy?
Yeah, so I mean, that's happening like with clean hydrogen production. Like I mentioned, our partners over in the European Marine Energy Center, they have a clean hydrogen. So they produce more clean energy out there than they need on those islands. So they're able to take that excess energy, store it as green hydrogen, and then they're using that green hydrogen to power airplanes, like truck vehicles, and then looking at maritime transportation, how you can use it to power, you know, clean energy for those. So that's, I think, you know, that's kind of the future. In the recent infrastructure bill, there's a lot of funding that's going towards hydrogen and producing centers of excellence for clean hydrogen.
And I know a lot of the ingredients in making a good fuel cell are hard to come by, I guess.
Yeah.
But to my understanding, most of them are not actually used up in the process of storing energy. Is that correct? In the fuel cell? Like, okay, we'll move on. I probably have answered my question poorly. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any other questions?
It doesn't look like it right now, Amanda. So again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I first want to thank George Bonner for his leadership in this area and his service to the community and this wonderful information. I had no idea of some of this going on, and we're all can be excited, looking forward to the Waves to Water project testing in first week of April, you said. So we're going to look forward to that. And secondly, I'd like to thank each and every one of our participants. This was one of our largest events attended from non-League of Women Voters members. You know, it's women voters, but we do have men that are welcome to join our group as well. We strive to be nonpartisan, and we strive to educate the public on voting and other issues that we support. And our motto is empowering voters and defending democracy. And I hope that you'll join us in future events, and please check out our website. And as we move into elections, check out our award-winning website, the vote411.org, that is provided by League members to get the information from our candidates in their own words. I'm going to leave the Zoom open for a few minutes, and you know, each of you can save the chat if you would like to get some of those links and George's email that he put out. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us today. And it's wonderful. We had beautiful snow this morning, but it looks like we're all okay and safe.
Thank you,
Last
guys.
words?
No, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity, and I really appreciate it, and I hope everyone stays safe. So thank you.
Thank you, George. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. And I need to save the chat too. Save chat. I'm going to end the recording.